March 31st, 1922. The village of Hinterkaifeck, Bavaria. The sun sets shortly after 6 p.m. Inside the farmhouse, a fire has been lit. The barn animals have been fed and the door locks have been checked, as usual. The 6 people inside this house have no particular reason to believe tonight will be any different from any other night. But they are wrong. Someone else is already on the property. This is the story of the murder of 6 people on a remote farm in Bavaria in 1922. A killer who remained in the house with their bodies for 3 days afterward, and an investigation that has spanned over a century and has never resulted in a single arrest. The Hinterkaifeck farm is located roughly 70 kilometers north of Munich and was built around 1863. The farm is bordered on several sides by the edge of Bavaria's dense forests. This is not a place where strangers pass through, and the road that leads to it goes nowhere else. In the rural foothills region of Bavaria in 1922, most of the surrounding population works in agriculture and knows their neighbors by name, by face, and by the sound of their cartwheels on the road. Any unfamiliar person on the path to Hinterkaifeck would certainly have been seen and would have immediately drawn attention, unless they came through the forest and never approached the village. The farmhouse housed 6 people. Andreas Gruber, 63 years old, the patriarch of the family. A man described by neighbors as gruff, quick-tempered, harsh, and frightening, someone his workers feared and his neighbors disliked. He has worked this land for decades and is not the kind of man who scares easily or asks anyone for help. His wife, Cecilia, 72 years old, who inherited the farm as part of her divorce settlement from her first husband years before marrying Andreas. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, 35 years old, whose husband Carl was killed in December 1914 in the early months of World War I on the Western Front, though his body was never recovered from the battlefield. Victoria has 2 children, Cecilia, 7 years old, and Joseph, 2 years old. The dark history beneath the surface of this family is not unrelated to what happens. This story begins 6 months before the murders. The family's maid, Crescentia Ria, suddenly resigns. She later tells people that she left because of strange noises coming from the attic and firmly believes the house is haunted. Andreas dismisses this as he has no belief in the supernatural, but other family members have also heard those noises that, according to accounts shared with neighbors, were too loud for a small animal. Andreas repeatedly goes up to the attic with a lantern, searches the space, and finds nothing. The noises start again each time after he returns downstairs. Then, in March 1922, roughly 3 weeks before the murders, a Munich newspaper is found on the property. Andreas cannot explain it. He first thinks the postman made a mistake, but no one in the surrounding area subscribes to this particular paper. The newspaper simply appears. Around the same time, a key goes missing from the house. The family searches, but the key is not found. Only a few days before March 31st, Andreas finds something that, by any reasonable standard, should have prompted a report to the authorities. Fresh footprints in the snow leading from the edge of the forest, straight across the farm's open fields, toward a door whose lock was broken and which led to the machinery room. Andreas follows the footprints from the forest's edge to the door. He searches the machinery room, the barn, and the house. He goes up to the attic again with his lantern. He finds nothing, but the footprints do not lead back out. Someone came out of the Bavarian forest, entered the farm through the broken door, and according to all the physical evidence left in the snow, never left. Andreas tells a few neighbors about the footprints. He tells them about the newspaper, the missing key, and the attic noises, but no one calls the police. Andreas tells one neighbor that he is not afraid and that his rifle is ready if needed. 8 years later, that neighbor repeats this statement in a formal affidavit. It is one of the last known reports of anything Andreas Gruber ever said. What happened inside the farm on the night of March 31st has been reconstructed from physical evidence and autopsy findings because no witnesses survived. Everyone present that night was dead before morning. The reconstruction that investigators eventually pieced together suggests that the killer had a deep knowledge of the farm's daily routines and the specific geography of the property. The barn is where the livestock are kept. It is the place where, first, unusual nighttime sounds are heard. It is the place a farmer goes to check without hesitation and without calling for anyone, because checking strange noises in the barn at night is simply what you do on a farm, and it has never required a second person, and the killer exploits this. Andreas enters the barn first. The murder weapon is a mattock, a heavy farming tool used for breaking hard ground and cutting tree roots. The blow to Andreas's head was not the only one. By the time investigators reach him, his face is covered in dried blood. Then Cecilia and Victoria. Both hear noises and enter the barn. In addition to the blunt force trauma, both Victoria and her mother show signs of strangulation. They may have been bound before death, but it is Victoria who suffers the worst, 9 distinct chop wounds to her skull. The violence directed at Victoria is disproportionate, even compared to the brutality of the rest of the scene. This suggests something personal, something beyond mere efficiency in killing. Then 7-year-old Cecilia enters the barn. The child is struck, but she does not die immediately. She survives for hours in the barn in the dark among the bodies of her family until she finally dies. Evidence suggests that during those hours, she tore out clumps of her own hair. The killer then leaves the barn and enters the house. Maria Baumgartner, the maid, is in her room. She had arrived at the farm only a few days earlier, barely knows the family, and hasn't even had enough time to learn the family's history. She is killed in her room with the same weapon. Then, 2-year-old Joseph is killed in his cradle with a single blow. 6 people, in one night, with one weapon. But the killer stays on the farm after the murders. Investigators later determined that whoever committed these killings continued to live on the property for about 3 days afterward. By the time neighbors finally arrive, the livestock have been fed and tended to. Food has been cooked and eaten in the kitchen. The fireplace has been used multiple times. A wall calendar in the house shows that the date pages have been torn off through April 1st, as if someone kept marking the passage of each day inside a house full of corpses. The following night, a craftsman named Michael Pluckel passes by on the road beside Hinterkaifeck and sees smoke rising from the chimney, indicating that the stove is lit. An unknown person inside the house approaches Pluckel and shines a lantern directly into his eyes. Due to the bright light, he cannot see the person's face clearly. Pluckel continues on his way without investigating further. He also notices that the smoke coming from the chimney has a foul stench. This report was recorded in statements years later, but the stove was never inspected to determine what had been burned inside it. Outside, in the surrounding village, daily life continues uninterrupted for 3 full days. The postman delivers letters. Villagers passing on the distant road see smoke from the chimney. From every point where it is visible, the farm looks exactly as if it is operating as usual. By April 4th, the silence has lasted long enough to become noticeable. Victoria, who sings in the church choir, has not attended services. Uncollected milk has piled up. Until Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had a relationship with Victoria and whose name appears on Josef's birth certificate, becomes worried. That same day, he sends his 16-year-old son, Johann, and his 9-year-old foster son to the farm to check in. The boys return without seeing anyone. Schlittenbauer himself goes there with neighbors, Michael Pönny and Jakob Siegel. The 3 men arrive and find all the doors locked. They break open a gate to enter the barn. Inside the barn, they find 4 bodies piled on the straw and partially covered with hay. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and little Cecilia. Schlittenbauer, without waiting for the others, apparently produces a key and opens the front door of the house. He enters alone. He finds the maid, Maria Baumgartner, dead in her room, and 2-year-old Joseph dead in his cradle. When later asked why he entered alone when he suspected the killer might still be in the house, he says he went in to find Joseph. It was also noted that he moved the bodies in the barn before investigators arrived. News spreads through the village. By the time Chief Investigator Georg Reiner arrives from Munich, dozens of local residents have passed through the farmhouse. The footprints in the snow, which could have been the only crucial physical evidence in the case, have been completely destroyed under the boots of people who did not know what they were destroying. The court physician, Johann Baptist Aumüller, performs the autopsies on April 5th, right there in the barn among the bodies. He confirms the mattock as the murder weapon and determines that the killer used both the flatback and the sharp blade at different points. The suspects that investigators put forward over the following decades fall into several categories, each with its own internal logic and unresolved problems. Lorenz Schlittenbauer remains the most prominent suspect. He had motive, the bitter end of his relationship with Victoria, the dispute over Joseph's paternity, the court proceedings in which Victoria was trying to force him to pay child support, and his behavior at the crime scene: calmness, deliberate moving of bodies, entering the house alone, and the words he used. He ultimately sued several neighbors for accusing him of involvement in the murders and won. He died in 1941, having maintained his innocence for nearly 2 decades. Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, officially declared killed in December 1914 in France. His body never recovered. After World War II, a number of prisoners of war from the Schrobenhausen area, who were being sent home by a German-speaking Soviet officer, claimed that he identified himself in conversation as the Hinterkaifeck killer. Some of these men later amended their statements, undermining their credibility. The theory that a man presumed dead for 8 years returned from the war, killed his entire family, and disappeared again is a dramatic and unresolved theory that can neither be confirmed nor disproven. In 2007, students of the German Police Academy conducted a formal analysis of the cold case file of Hinterkaifeck. They announced that they had identified a likely suspect, but declined to name him due to living descendants. That name has never been made public. In a bizarre twist, the victims' heads were severed and sent to Munich for examination by clairvoyants. They were later lost, and the victims were buried headless. Less than a year after the murders, the farm building was demolished. The demolition revealed further evidence that the active investigation had overlooked: a mattock caked with dried blood in the attic, separate from the mattock found in the barn, and a pocket knife among the straw. In May 1927, 5 years after the murders, a stranger stopped one of the residents of Weidenhofen on the road at midnight. The stranger asked questions about the Hinterkaifeck murders. Then, without warning, he loudly declared that he was the killer and fled into the forest. He was never identified and never seen again. Over 100 people have been interrogated by investigators over several decades. No conviction has ever been obtained, no charges have ever been formally filed, and over a century after the event, the case remains open. A small concrete memorial now stands near where the farm once was, but the farm itself is gone. The forest is still there on several sides, exactly where it has always been. And somewhere at the edge of that forest, in the weeks before March 31st, 1922, a set of footprints began, sank into the snow, emerged from among the trees, and crossed the open field toward the lighted window of a farmhouse where 6 people were spending their evening, with no particular reason to believe that that night would end any differently than any other night. The snow filled in the tracks of whoever had made them. The forest reclaimed the path. No one ever came out from it.